Lisa, let's talk a little bit more about these allegations. There is the ex-sister-in-law talking about one of Pete Hegseth's ex-wives. There's a little bit of a wrinkle here regarding their divorce agreement that I think is worth sharing.
I think it is worth sharing because based on excellent reporting by Julie and some of our other colleagues at NBC News, we now know about that affidavit that Danielle Hegseth, the former sister-in-law of Samantha Hegseth and Pete Hegseth, has given to the committee. Samantha Hegseth has not given any public statements, Katie, except for one to NBC News in which she said solely that she denied that there was any physical abuse that occurred during her marriage. She said that would be her only statement and asked us to please respect her privacy. There is a lot of room to acknowledge what else Danielle Hegseth has said in her affidavit that goes beyond and is other than physical abuse. In fact, even the things in her affidavit that sort of touch on or hint at physical abuse don't actually say that Samantha Hegseth experienced it. What she says is that Samantha Hegseth, for example, told her that she was so afraid of Pete Hegseth that at one point she hid in her closet. She also says that they had a safe word, meaning Samantha Hegseth had a safe word with some of her friends and family so that if necessary, she could develop an escape plan. And the reason that matters is because Samantha Hegseth very carefully worded terse denial could possibly be explained by a document that I discovered yesterday. In the divorce decree from 2018 between Pete and Samantha Hegseth, there is a provision that is a very broad non-disparagement provision. I want to draw a distinction, if I can, between non-disparagement and non-disclosure. Non-disclosure agreement or provision says, I cannot talk about X, I will not talk about event Y. That's not what this is. What it says, though, is that neither of the former Hegseth wife or Pete Hegseth will engage in any public discourse, including through the traditional media or social media, that could disparage the other. And given how much of that is open to interpretation, that could explain why Samantha Hegseth won't say anything at all. She has allegedly spoken to the FBI. We have reported that. But in terms of her willingness to engage publicly, she has said almost nothing at all beyond denying the physical abuse, which, of course, leaves room for the veracity of much of what Danielle Hegseth says, including about his alcohol abuse, his racist and misogynistic comments, and, most importantly, the fact that Samantha Hegseth, at various points in their marriage, told Danielle Hegseth she was fearful for her own personal safety.
Is Pete Hegseth the only person that Donald Trump can appoint to this role? Is there anybody else in his orbit that that would be qualified and that maybe doesn't have this sort of potential baggage?
Yeah, probably 10 million people. I mean, this is the most...
That would work for Donald Trump.
I mean, at least dozens, right? I mean, this is the most unqualified, extreme, and disqualified candidate I've ever seen in my life for any cabinet position.
What if it was DeSantis?
I'm sorry. That's obviously a tremendous improvement for our national security, our troops, and our moral conscience. I mean, this guy shouldn't be running a hot dog stand. I mean, he shouldn't be a principal of your local school. I keep saying that. Would anybody who's voting tonight be okay if Pete Hegseth was going to be the principal of the school where your children go? Because this is, in my view, one of the lowest points I've seen in American politics. He's completely ridiculous at this point. And even worse, if they do confirm him, what happens if 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, more stuff comes out and he's sitting as Secretary of Defense trying to deal with Putin and trying to deal with our national security threats? That becomes a bigger issue, and that's why I don't think this is over until that.
Is there anybody advocating to senators saying, hey, listen, I know you want to hand Donald Trump a win here, but Donald Trump can get a win with people that are still pretty aligned with him, that maybe you should go to him and say, I don't like this nominee, but I could work with a DeSantis, or I could work with a Joni Ernst, or I could work with X general or Y general?
Joni Ernst would fly through. I mean, Hegseth will go down, if he goes through, as the most divisive SecDef candidate in history, right? So Ernst would fly right through, and it would be better for our national security, our stability, morale, recruiting. But it looks like they're going to push it all the way unless they pull it out in the 11th hour, because I would not put it aside that something could come out in the next 6 hours. I mean, it's been like that throughout this entire number.
That you could have anything come out that's going to sway Republicans at this point.
I think a lot of them are keeping their powder dry.
Well, I also find that when more allegations come out, the harder the heels get dug in. I mean, Bret Stephens was arguing that Hegseth was looking like a very rocky confirmation until the Jane Mayer piece came out about his history, his past with drinking, the accusations of harassment. All of that stuff made it more imperative for Republicans to confirm him.
Yesterday, a lot of people thought that Collins and Murkowski were lost, right? And now we're talking about Tillis. There's still questions even about McConnell. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be on Friday night for the entire world to see. And I hope that everybody's making this case, to, not just to President Trump, but to those Republicans who can make a difference here and can put our national security over partisanship and over loyalty to Donald Trump.
Courtney was telling me, Courtney Kubi, who does our Pentagon reporting, says that there's a lot of, he's a divisive figure within the Pentagon as well, that there are people that think he's completely unqualified, don't want him anywhere near it, but there are also men and women in the military that like him, and they like that he has had his boots on the ground, dirt on his boots, as he had said, sand on his boots. They like that he knows what sort of ammunition goes into what sort of rifle. I mean, can you help explain that dynamic?
There's people with extreme political views and lower integrity in the military, just like every other organization in America. There are plenty of Trump supporters. There are plenty of folks who think he's great because they watch him on Fox News. But almost every nominee for Secretary of Defense has had dirt on their boots, right? Chuck Hagel had 2 Purple Hearts. Lloyd Austin is well decorated. So that's just kind of a distraction here. I mean, he talks the talk, but ultimately he doesn't have what we need in terms of integrity and potential compromises to be a Secretary of Defense. I think it's absolutely shameful that we're even talking about this. Any normal time, he would be withdrawn and we'd be on to other candidates.
Julie, tell me, are you hearing about others, other names that are out there, maybe some lobbying of senators to say no to this one, to say yes to a DeSantis, yes to a Joni Ernst? Is there anybody else that you're hearing about?
Oh, man. I mean, it's definitely the names that we've been talking about. Mitch McConnell is certainly somebody. Trump is even watching himself. Tom Tillis, obviously somebody who's been telling us all week that he is looking into all of the facts. But, Katie, I've covered this building under the first Trump administration. I know how much pressure they're under. Now it is even greater when you have Elon Musk and guys threatening to throw a ton of money in their face with primary challengers. Many of these folks who are voting no or considering voting no are actually up in 2026, including Joni Ernst, including Tom Tillis, including Mitch McConnell, Collins, and Murkowski. And so this is a political calculation for them, too. And remember, they don't want to be the deciding vote on this thing, right? They either have 4 that are going to vote against him because J.D. Vance can break any tie, even if it's 3 Republicans who ultimately vote against him. And nobody wants to be that deciding vote, because what is the point of putting your neck out there just to feel Trump and his administration and his people's wrath over the next 4 years, 2 years at least in some of their cases. And so this is a super big decision for them. It is why you hear somebody like Tom Tillis saying that he's doing his due diligence. He's trying to talk to witnesses. He's trying to corroborate this information from Danielle Hegseth. They are all seizing on that statement that she provided to us saying that there was no physical abuse, in part because Hegseth's attorney is circulating that statement to Republicans. He sent a letter to Senator Roger Wicker earlier this week, copy-pasting that email from Samantha to Courtney Kubi in her response about the physical abuse allegations, saying, look, nothing happened here. And so they're clearly under a ton of pressure here, but I know this is still a very live ball, Katie.
All right, Julie Sirkin, Paul Rieckhoff, Lisa Rubin, everybody, thank you very much.